Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Skip, aka Skipntosh, here with my man Wes. Go ahead and say what's up to the people, Wes.
What's going on, everybody? I love you. We're going to talk some powers or House of 10 or House of X. My bad.
We're gonna talk some Powers of X and House of 10 today. Okay?
Absolutely.
I forget what this means, but it just makes me think of
It's
the
a
flowers.
heart.
What is it?
It's a heart.
Oh, it's a heart. Oh, it's a heart. I was thinking of like holding the Krakoan flowers that I'm growing in my backyard right now because they are sprouting and pictures will be coming. Speaking of things sprouting, here we go. House of X, we got the last one. This is going to be a really interesting show because we got two different opinions on how we feel about this book. And the only thing more interesting than me and Wes agreeing and talking about how excited we are is me and Wes disagreeing and talking about why. He thinks critical in one way, I think critical in another way. Together we think critical. Before we jump into
Called magic.
I'm just gonna say what Wes says for right now until we get this conversation going. Thank you to Tabu Ohana, one of our new sponsors, Tabu Ohana Gaming Chairs. There will be a link in the description to get a discount. So if you're looking for a gaming chair from a company that supports orphans, which was one of the biggest draws and the reasons why I joined them was their orphans ministry, started by immigrants who are also veterans. And they support orphans. Currently in Vietnam is where the main orphans ministry is, but it will move around. We should say, forfeited the incentive that we would get for selling the chairs to actually just give that money directly back to the orphans. So you guys profit by getting that additional discount as well. So thank you to them. And thank you to Computer Booter as well, Gaming Lounge. I'm going to get Wes to try to come and play some games with me, some retro games. We'll see if that happens. But today, we're going to talk about comics in this House of 10. Now, Wes, it's interesting. I mean, we might as well start from the beginning, my friend. I was taken by the cover alone. To me, the cover was an indicator that I might really enjoy it. But don't judge a book by its cover, except for maybe it's a comic book. Then you kind of got to judge it by its cover. But the first thing inside of the cover says, it's a quote. Is what we have perfect? No. What is? But it's a start, and it's a good one. Professor X. And then we go right into being on Krakoa and inside of No Place. Wes, I'm going to ask your thoughts. Jumping in, what did you think about finally seeing No Place?
Well, it's not exactly what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a black tumor, that you couldn't really see inside. But it turns out it's just like a glass bubble somewhere on Krakoa. I imagine it's underneath, but it's where Charles and Moira hang out, and apparently it's the only place Charles feels comfortable removing his helmet.
That was an interesting point. It's fun. I love that we do this show, not just for the people watching, but even for us. I didn't realize that he didn't have his helmet on for a second there, but he truly didn't. And now that I'm looking at it, not only did he have his helmet on, but why he has his helmet on down there, we don't see his eyes, Wes.
They won't show his face. I loved it.
Love it.
Something wrong with that man.
Something's not right with that Charles Xavier. Check Xavier's off. Something's not right about him. Of course, they go through the dialogue, and something that's interesting to me, and there's obviously significance to it, but it also threw me off because I recount what's going on in this story fairly well, I believe. Charles and Xavier already had a conversation about where each other stands and their commitment to each other, or really their commitment to this vision that Charles has via Moira. But Eric, aka Magneto, takes a second to say, like, hey, everything, whatever happened before and all, how we weren't on the same page and all the wars and all the times that we fought against each other in disagreements and the ideological, unyielding persistence, that all ends today. You have my word. I thought he already had his word. Wes, did this stick out to you at all that he said that?
Absolutely, it did. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we're watching multiple versions of the same events.
Okay, that makes sense, and I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, I think that's just another hint.
Okay, So, and I'm going to take it as that too, because I couldn't put my finger quite on what it was, but it was, and it was apparent, and we saw it there. I did, again, Pepe Larraz's art. Oh my gosh. I read this live on stream a little bit earlier, and I was taking screenshot after screenshot after screenshot. It was just so powerful and strong, but I loved Charles is the one wearing the black. Magneto is the one wearing the white, and that white glove going on Charles's shoulder, and Charles's black glove like going right over and embracing it. Just again, kind of showing how united they are, but something's not right. And then we go into Charles and his message to the humans, pretty much letting everybody know that they're on notice. He had already done a projection to all mutants saying, hey, go ahead and come home. Had that fantastic conversation with Name. Okay.
Not correct.
Wes, come on over. What do we
These events happened before the first issue of House of X. Remember when the ambassadors were talking about the 3 drugs?
Yes.
This is what happened. This is how they know about it. This is a month prior to, so his projection to all the mutants happened after this.
Interesting. Happens after this. Okay. Which, I can agree with that. In my mind, from a storytelling perspective, it throws me off. Because, I would think that you would send a message to the mutants before you sent a message to the humans. But then again, like Wes said, we are seeing 2 different tellings possibly of the same storyline, because that 6th life still has not been explained. And obviously, I feel like it will be in the Powers book. So with that said, this happening before the call to the mutants, we still do see panels of, the Avengers. We see...
First time we've seen the Avengers.
First time we've seen the Avengers. Captain America, bam. We see Iron Man. I don't have my Iron Man mug. We see
Black Panther.
Visit Wakanda. It never freezes here.
Absolutely.
We see the Fantastic Four again, which I would have figured that whatever happened with what's their son's name again?
Franklin.
Whatever happened with Franklin and that whole, hey, tell him he's got a family waiting for him. That started in the House book, so I would have figured it would have concluded or at least gone further in the House book, but no mention of Franklin again.
No, that's because this is before that event.
Oh, that's right. I literally have to put my brain over here. That's before this event. So, okay, so that makes sense.
Yes, this is when everyone's being notified of the nation of Krakoa and the 3 drugs that they're offering and what they want in return.
Right, exactly.
Which is what this message is all about.
That's how those people knew that the drug were to offer, and that's why they went to Jerusalem in the first place. And then ultimately, Charles is basically just telling everybody, we are going to be recognized. This is what we have to offer you. We normally, before, I would have given it as a gift, but this time around, I'm going to make you pay for it because you have not earned it. And
wait, you gotta listen to this line though. Okay. What he says. He says, all I ever wanted was to love you, for you to love us. We wanted to save you, and we did many times. But in return, all you did was stand by while evil men killed our children, over 16 million in total. And then he says, we're going to help you again, but there's a price now. You're going to give us our sovereignty. We're no longer going to live by your rule. And that's going to be that. It's a very cool moment. Really liked it. And he got pretty sinister there at the end. Yes, it's not negotiable. And he gets pretty sinister at the end when he basically says, and why do you think we can do this? Because we are the future and evolutionary inevitability, the Earth's true inheritors. Mic dropped on everyone's mind. Put them in their place. It was a great moment, great dialogue. Actually, Hickman's dialogue in this whole comic issue is great.
Yeah, I would say if there's 2 highlights of this issue, it's definitely number 1 to me is Pepe Larraz's art. Number 2 is Hickman's dialogue for sure, and then number 3 is the story, and I think that's where Wes and I differ. But so we move past that, and that is the start of the book. And then next we come about the council. Now it did get leaked. Wes, maybe you can talk about this because you're a little more informed, and it was in your news story. Can you tell a little bit about who the council is, and then actually how we ended up finding out early about it?
Okay, the reason we found out early was the digital copy, and then you copy and paste the page, the names came up from underneath the black marks. So everyone already knew who the members were. So we do know that the red, well, it says Red King now, but that's supposed to be Kitty Pryde. I don't know why they call her the Red King. I just realized it said King. So maybe that part was off. Maybe it is Namor. But we did know the other names beforehand because of that copy and paste thing that you could do with the digital.
And it's funny you say Namor now, and I was so sold like on it. Well, first I was sold on it being Moira, and then I watched your video, and you talked about that point in it being Kitty Pryde, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, for people who haven't seen the covers that have already been publicly released, Kitty Pryde is the leader of the Marauders, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay.
And there's a cover with her standing next to Emma Frost with a red ship on a map, and they're planning something out. Makes sense. She's the Red Queen. She's leading the Marauders. But I didn't realize until now it says Red King, but I think that's just a red herring.
So, all right. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Shout out to IKEA, because I ate herring there one time when I used to work there. So as you say Red King now, and it's coming to mind, and I think about the Marauders, and that shot of the Marauders in the cover is them on the ocean, on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm thinking
they're on
it's
the high
not Kitty
seas.
Pryde. I think Kitty Pryde is going to be the other part of the council, which we'll probably talk about in a second, the captains. I think she's going to end up being one of the captains, and I do think it will be Namor that ultimately ends up joining him, because that, and again, Wes and I were having a conversation about how things can go. In my mind, I'm weighing everything on impact. The impact of Namor being unified with the rest of the mutants, and Doc is so knowledgeable, X-Men, come and tell me if I'm wrong here, but to my knowledge, this would be the first time that Namor is actually unified with the rest of the mutants. That's big.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about Doc on that one. I know in the Invaders, it was just he and Charles had a secret relationship, like back in the 70s, right. But
and they were on the council. They were on the council of the Illuminati together as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's pretty interesting. She won't be a captain though, because they named the 4 captains: Cyclops, Gorgon, Bishop, and Magic. But what I do think is interesting is when you look at what Namor would bring to the table, and Kitty Pryde, being on the team, is the reveal of Namor would be much more impactful. It would be really cool. But I think Namor might be one of the villains that they fight. They might have to confront him, and then turn to their side when he sees that their motives are pure and they have the mutants' best interest at heart. Because he certainly didn't believe that last.
That's very true. That's a good point, and I do agree on the impact of that. And because of the impact of that, I can see that being a later storyline. Honestly, with who's writing Marauders?
That's Jerry Duggan.
Okay. Me, I'm notoriously not the biggest Jerry Duggan fan. And when I wrote a tweet about it to Jonathan Hickman, Jerry Duggan liked it. So still thanks, Jerry Duggan, for liking my tweet. Yeah. With him being one of the writers of that, I would almost rather prefer that be the storyline, because if we left another storyline up to him, that might be a sinking ship.
Hey, you never know. Hey, his Savage Sword of Conan is one of the best stories of all of 2019. I guarantee you that. That comic book was amazing.
And that was him that was writing it?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go back and read it, just because the only thing that I've liked from Jerry Duggan ever was actually, Savage Avengers, which has Conan in it. That's the only thing I've ever liked from him.
The opening page of Savage Sword of Conan is Conan sitting on a piece of wood, eating the flesh of a shark that he just killed because he's been marooned. His ship's been destroyed by pirates. It was amazing.
Count me in. That alone, I'll go.
Yeah, it's so good.
For Conan.
It's Ron Garney. It's amazing. It's one of the best illustrated comics of all 2019. It's amazing.
Count me in.
Can I say amazing enough? It's phenomenal.
It's magnanimous. Okay.
It's magnanimous.
Then this takes us into the panel of the Krakoan count. Oh, Wes, did you want to wrap up the captains? Because I think you mentioned the captains already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So you got Cyclops, Gorgon, Bishop, and Magic, but Cyclops is the king bee. He's the big general of the army. So I thought it was interesting. At first, I was like, why isn't Cyclops on the council? But now it makes sense. He's the general. He's in charge of the army.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. If you need a mission completed, Slim will make sure it gets done.
And if they're in a conflict, he's in charge of everybody.
Everything. Yeah.
Including Charles.
And it's funny because, Wes, I kind of almost looked at that as like martial law almost.
I can tell you that in the military, that's how it works.
Okay. And that's all we'll ask.
Like, there are certain dudes in the military, like, it doesn't matter if they're a 4-star general. Okay. If there's a one striper and you're in a conflict zone and it comes down to, like, you're captured and stuff, you're not in charge because you're not really a military guy.
Okay.
You're the doctor.
Right.
Yeah, there's certain rules to where ranks and stuff change depending on situations. Makes sense
to me. And obviously Hickman doing great homework, put that into play in this book. So from a former military, we can say right here that's fairly accurate.
Yeah, it made sense to me.
Okay. If it made sense to you, then it was good. All right. So we walk into a actual view of the panel finally. I mean, of the council finally. They're all in the room. I personally, just from an art perspective, I loved how, you got the seats and you got the X in the middle. But the thing that I love the most is how, like, remember, there's 2 other people that are part of the council, which is Krakoa and Cypher. And I love how Cypher's just, like, chilling, like, in some branches of Krakoa, like, in Krakoa's hand. That was so cool.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great view. There's another one that's even better that's actually wraps up the council event, but yeah, it's a well conceived. I really like the ideas behind it. The Arthurian overtone or undertones, the idea that it's built into Krakoa, and then also that the X is at the center of it, symbolizing everyone at the table is now an X-Man.
Yep. Or are they, Wes? Are they all X-Men?
As far as I'm concerned, they are.
Okay.
They're at a table with a huge X on it.
Okay. See, because one of the things that I keep saying, along with me saying these aren't the this X-Men books yet, the X books are coming. Now, just because these aren't the X-Men books doesn't mean that there aren't X-Men in them. And it doesn't even mean that these people at the council can't be X-Men. But I keep coming back to the fact that since this is a mutant book, like, if we don't have a mutant X gene, we don't have X-Men. We don't have Xavier's men. Or, like I said, the mutant X gene X-Men. So I still see that in my mind. I'm thinking of purely mutants at the essence. I still see that X representing all Mutantkind because it's the X gene, the symbol for the thing that makes them different from humans.
Well, I mean, this is leading directly into Dawn of X with X-Men series. That's the only reason I took it that way.
True.
Because now everyone's at the table and we're all X-Men. We're all united. Mm-hmm. Like the great second movie that they made.
Right. So these people together at the table with the X. Now it's time to take care of the first order of business. Great shots of every side of the table. Of course, when we get to the Hellfire Corp side, there is a seat that is missing, or that is empty, I should say. And they say, okay, first order of business, we have to figure out what to do with Sabretooth. And I liked how Kurt was talking, and he says, and so it appears our first bit of business is the oldest kind on this planet. Judgment. So good. Such good dialogue here, bro. What were your thoughts of, like, because at first I was like, hold on, they're going to, like, pass judgment on Creed? He literally was going and he got caught doing the thing that they sent him out to do, and then it didn't occur.
But they didn't follow his rules.
That he didn't do it the way they told him to do it. And what was your thoughts on that, on this kind of part of it, Wes?
All right, so this is where I like this comic book lesson. I find governance not be incredibly interesting to read. I'm much more into culture and action. So, like in the prequel Star Wars movies, there's so much politics in there, it just grinds it to a halt. Like, there's a lot of Star Wars stuff in there, but there's so much like politics in the Senate. I don't really like it. So this part, the governance, I think it's interesting seeing all the council members working together and their points of view, because they're all very different. But governance in a book isn't my favorite thing. But there is some great dialogue. I do like the conflicts that arise, and Mr. Sinister has some pretty funny lines when he's antagonizing.
Absolutely. So again, me being I'm just going to go ahead and call myself a weirdo, the weirdo that I am, in the prequels, one of my favorite thing about the prequels was the political stuff. Mm-hmm. all the black market stuff going out on the outer areas and rims of the galaxy and everything. How the Sith infiltrated, like, since it's the rule of two and there's only two of them, how they infiltrated and then ultimately took over the government and turned them against the Jedi. That was actually all stuff that I was actually really invested in, even when I was younger, and I don't know why. I guess probably because I'm a weirdo. Now, if I divorce myself from that and say, okay, well, just because you might be into government stuff, Curtis, and you're one of those people that research conspiracy theories but are not like the paranoid person, like, why would I like this part? Well, if this part served no other purpose, and it does serve a purpose beyond this, I believe, if it serves no other purpose, going back to the dialogue, it gave an opportunity to distinctly show the personalities of every person on the council that is in attendance.
Absolutely, yes. Jean is very compassionate. Mm-hmm. Kurt is very much coming from a religious point of view. Mm-hmm. Apocalypse could care less about anyone unless it's a mutant. What was the Hellfire Corporation only cares about commerce. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why I said, there's good stuff like that. I just, government. What? I
mean, and that's just.
But this is a great comic book. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
This is a great comic book.
Of course. And that's the thing. Like, this is where preference comes into play. People have preferences. You know what I mean? Like, I prefer this type of stuff. Wes doesn't. It grinds it to a halt. Now, me being able to be objective and not only stay in my mind, I stand by what I feel, but getting into Wes's mind, it's pretty obvious to me that, like, I could definitely say this was, even if I just step back, it's the second act of the book. And just like movies, the second act of movies is usually where you kind of start off and you get some things that are interesting, and then usually you kind of come down and you got to do your thing, you got to sort out your business, and then the third act, things go up again. This is the second act. And definitely this is like the calmest, lowest point of the book. I'll even say, compared to the other two parts, this is the most boring part. I just so happen to prefer it. Well, Wes is like, come on already. Let's get
Well, here's the thing. I'm a natural skeptic. So when I see this board of rulers here, I'm just like, well, they're all going to be corrupted with power and they're going to ruin everything. So I'm not investing in this because it's all going to fall apart.
Right.
That's how I feel about government.
And so for me, this is how I view it. The same way, except a slight addition. I know this is going to fall apart. There's no way that this can stand forever. But everything that starts out, everything that eventually becomes corrupt, especially government entities, they always start out, usually almost always, with the revolution because there's injustice. And then they install a system that's supposed to be altruistic. And then usually by the second or third generation, if not the very first generation, that's when all of the stuff starts to fall apart. People, like Wes said, people get drunk with power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. They start not wanting to agree with everybody. Egos come into play. So for me, I actually like to see where it started. It was like, look how harmonious everybody's supposed to be. Yeah, this is all going to hit the fan.
See also the French Revolution, which led to the Great Terror, which led to the Second Great Terror. And you can see why you never put a newspaper publisher in charge of your country.
Because you know what's going to happen. Propaganda, first and foremost.
And he's going to get paranoid and start chopping everyone's heads off.
Yep. Heads will roll, Wes. Heads will roll. And heads did roll in this book in a kind of interesting way, in a way that I did not think. So as everybody,
should we go over the first three laws?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the three laws?
They established that when they start the council, there's no laws whatsoever. And they established the first law based on Jean Grey. She said, if you can't be resurrected, it should be the greatest crime to kill someone that can't be brought back. So killing a human should be the first law, and they agree, but with a caveat: if we're protecting Krakoa in defense of our nation, we can kill humans, but to actually take a human life for another reason is against the law.
Right.
And then the Hellfire Club comes in, and Sebastian Stahl starts talking about property ownership. Cypher says, "Hey, I'm speaking on behalf of Krakoa here. You're treading a thin line. Don't be talking about property like that." And then Paris stands up and he says, "The boy's got a point. This is our Eden. This is what fulfills us. It provides us. Defending this, there's great honor in it." So then the second law is we will respect the land of Krakoa. And then the third law, I lost it.
I got it.
Who had the third law? Okay, you go.
The guy who has my same name, Kurt Wagner, a.k.a. Night
Yes, that was the third law.
And Wes, remember I said that when we do our conclusion show, we might have to go back and like kind of tally up the things we were right and wrong about. This was one of the very first things I said. Make more mutants. And not only that, I love, like, not only just being a Christian man, but the fact that it was based off of something that you can actually reference. Mystique, who I thought it was interesting that she challenged him, and she says, hey, tell us, where is your foolish providence, Kurt, in all of this? Where is your God's wisdom? And it just looks out over him, and he stops for a second with his webbed fingers, grouped fingers, and he thinks, and he quotes the Bible. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. It is obvious, isn't it, Raven? We need to make more mutants.
Yeah, he has a very creepy grin on his face.
For the first time since I've ever seen him, from when I saw him designed to now, the only time that this thing that looks like a demon but acts like an angel quoted the Bible and looked and almost acted like a demon.
It was pretty creepy. I didn't like it.
I liked that I didn't like it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like it. It was a great moment. It's probably the best moment of the whole thing, until Judgment. Yeah.
So, and that was the other thing. Like you said, you mentioned Judgment. That was the thing that that he had mentioned. And then there it goes. So there goes our three laws that got established. If nothing else in the council meeting, that's what happened. But to double back what I was saying, they did decide on the fate of Creed, and basically, after Emma Frost and Marvel Girl, aka Jean, had to make him shut up and make him turn into a drooling, babbling fool. They basically said, like, hey, there's really nothing positive that you offer to us. We did tell you to go on that mission with Mystique, but we told you not to spill any blood or kill anyone, and you betrayed that. And we could show mercy, or we could make an example out of you. And not only just to make an example out of you, but because we have established these laws in this first meeting, you violated them. Ones that we already told you not to do, and ones we've all agreed upon today. And his fate was to be basically death. But the thing is, they said, but we don't want to kill you. And you're already kind of too hard to kill, but we don't want to kill you. But what we will do is you will fall into Krakoa, and you will fall into a stasis. You will be alive, but you will not be able to act or move, and you will stay there until another day where we decide a different fate for you, but this is the current one. And the second that Charles said, you'll be exiled, I immediately thought, the exiles!
That's not where my head went. I thought there's going to be a guy waiting for whoever turns on Charles in the council to go down and find a nice general for their army to go rain hell on the X-Men. And I will say this, Creed did not get a good day in court. The due process on Krakoa is an outrage, and I am firmly on Team Creed. He was railroaded. He never even committed a crime that was a law when it happened. They went and did it after the fact. What kind of crap was that? Not my cup of tea. I'm not. Krakoa ain't the utopia they're trying to sell it as.
Hey,
saying that.
I'm quoting Charles. Is it perfect? No. What is? But it's a start, and it's a good one.
Oh,
and I will say, I will say this to go against Creed, and I've already said it. Even though you're right, it was not established as a law when they go, but same thing. Like and maybe you could speak to this as a former military man. Even if something's not a law, if you are commanded to do something, when you go into the field and you engage and you disobey those commandments, and let's say you disobey them in the highest level, what would potential punishments be if you could? I'm not sure if you could speak on this. Well, let me ask you this.
If you went in and you were given the rules of engagement, and you violated and kill somebody, you're going to prison for murder.
Okay, so he is in.
But that's like a rule, man.
Okay.
That was previously established.
Okay,
there was no rules against killing humans yet.
Okay, so no laws against killing humans, but there was a command when you go out, and Magneto even said it. It's right there. When you go out, you don't kill anyone. You go, you get the data, you bring it back, no blood shed. And he shed blood. He killed multiple people savagely, which is his nature.
Listen, I am not saying that Creed is an angel here. I'm just saying he didn't have a fair day in court, and that I don't think that this prosecution would hold up. I think on appeal, Creed is going to get released. He's going to have his suit on. He's going to be talking to reporters, and he's going to be talking about the injustices on the Krakoa, man. He got railroaded.
Hashtag
How can you not see this?
Hey, I agree with that. Due process may not have been in attendance at that council meeting. I can't deny that fact. Okay. So.
Until the first meeting of the Council of Krakoa, nobody on there held dominion over Sabretooth. He went out there and risked his life for the mutants of Krakoa. And how do they treat him? They put him in exile, put him in stasis to be hanging around in forever and feeling everything but not being able to do anything. Mutant justice? I think not. I rest my case.
Everybody, clip this right now and put it up. He's defending muties. He's defending muties.
I am no human sympathizer.
Finally, what is he? Mutant. Anyway, all right. So we can agree that one thing Wes and I can agree on is that due process probably not served. The first meeting of the Council of Krakoa, a success. The first trial in Krakoa, maybe a bit of a farce.
Might need a little work on the responsibilities as far as prosecution goes, but there is that very last image that you can see when the council's about to break up. There's a beautiful overhead shot. You see that beautiful X, the round table. I love it. It's my favorite shot of the whole comic book.
Absolutely. Definitely one of the, not my favorite shot, but definitely one of my favorite shots. And the last thing that I'll say to kind of wrap up this part as we finally move on to the third and final act of this book is that he fell down, and they said that he fell into an abyss and he's being exiled. And I mentioned the exiles. But one of the other things is, per se, the only person who really knows where Victor fell, actually, no, they don't even know. I was going to say the only person that might know.
Well, Krakoa's the one that put him down there.
What'd you say?
Krakoa knows because Krakoa put him down there. That's the one that grabbed him and pulled him into the abyss.
Right. Literally Krakoa opened itself up and pulled him in. But remember, what I was going to say is I think he may have fallen in or somewhere close to the no place. And Krakoa wouldn't know about that because Krakoa can't detect the no place. It can't detect the Krakoan tumor. So if he did fall into no place, Krakoa could have dropped him literally right down in there, right next to Moira, and Krakoa wouldn't have known because it can't detect it. It doesn't know where it is, and neither can Cypher. So if we see anything happen to that, please remember that Skip said it right here.
My prediction is someone on the council turns on Charles, frees Sabretooth, and he's going to rain destruction on the X-Men.
Annihilation.
But anything could really happen. It's Jonathan Hickman here. He's Hickman. Unpredictable.
It's Hickman, and this is what he does to us on purpose. He makes us come up with all these ideas, and then me and Wes got to get on camera and we got to talk about it. So, and then you guys got to go in the comments and you got to give us your ideas and predictions. So please do that as well. And if you need to screenshot yours when you comment down there, screenshot it and do the same thing. Post it and then tag us. Because that way it'll be easier for us when we do the conclusion show to go back through. And some of the really good ones that were right, we'll go back through and we'll look them and we can even bring them up and feature them on the show. So you might be able to get a little shout out for your predictions. So hit us up on Twitter, Wes. It's all right there. If you're watching the show, you see it at Skipntosh, at Wes _from_TC. Third and final act now. As I said, usually the final act is where things go up, and it's not that the energy and everything didn't go up, but there wasn't all like tons of action. So I can even see how some would perceive this as still not very eventful or not very exciting. But to me, this was easily my favorite part of the book. I'll let Wes go ahead and start off on this point. Wes, as we see them walk out, my favorite panel of the whole book, beyond everything, was the splash page of the council walking out of the council and then walking out to everybody. And I loved it so much because as dope as Pepe Larraz has been, and I need to look up the colorist's name. I feel like the colorist needs to get some right there because all of the bleed over of the
let's talk about that now.
Would you say?
So Marte Gracia was the colorist for the first 5 issues of this and the 5 issues of Powers of 10 first 5 issues of Powers of 10. He got sick. And he wasn't able to do the last issue of House of X or Powers of 10. So I believe it's David Curiel actually took over this issue. And he does a phenomenal job basically emulating the style that Gracia was using beforehand. And you can hardly tell that it's a different artist. He does a great job. And I agree with you. This was my second favorite page. This was almost the page that I used in my review. My favorite panel for art.
It was incredible, and who was the colorist name for this that took over for
I believe it's David Curiel.
David Curiel. I don't know the age of David Curiel or Curiel or what era he's from, but all the bleed over of these colors reminded me so much of the bleed on the 80s and 90s printed comics. I literally saw that and I turned into a freaking 8-year-old again. A 9-year-old again. I was like, oh my God.
You turned into a giddy little skullgirl, didn't you?
Oh, dude. Like, dude, I mean, I want, like, give me the Girl Scout cookies, give me the Samoas, you know what I'm saying? And give me some Dr. Pepper and give me this comic book, man. And I'm freaking, and some Capri Suns too. And I'm 9 and 8 all over again. I loved this splash page. But Wes, please continue. What else were your feelings about this part?
So it's interesting. There's a monologue talking to Eric as it's going along, and then you're seeing different relationships. You know, Wolverine's got a 6-pack of beer. He's throwing out the drinks as everyone's celebrating mutant sovereignty. The first Council of Krakoa meeting, a new government formed. Truly, the origin of the new mutant nation of Krakoa is happening before us. It's a very cool moment. You got Dazzler is the one doing the lights display, and there's a few interesting things. Havoc shows up. He's giving his brother a hug. Wolverine's handing out beers to old enemies, because they're no longer foes. They're all in it together. They're mutant. They're brothers in mutanthood. And so it's really interesting. Even Emma Frost takes a beer from Jean Grey.
And to that point, what's interesting about that is who was she with? She was with Cyclops right before that, who ended up marrying Emma Frost. Like, as Jean Grey was away, I think even when she was dead or whatever, like, he ended up marrying her. So for them, again, Hickman doing his research, paying you for reading those books, them together, she looks over at her, goes, sits down next to her, doesn't look at her, they're faced away, because they don't need to look at each other, they're telepaths, hands her a beer, and Emma Frost takes it, and then she turns, and it's one of the cutest panels where she just looks with that blonde hair over her eye and looks at her. I was just like, this is amazing. Everybody, like,
hatchets were buried all over the place.
Yes.
Personal vendettas put to this wayside for the betterment of all mutants. What is happening here? Until the last page.
Of course, and we'll get there. So that was my thing. The beauty of all the unity, all of the, like Wes said, all the axes and hatchets being buried, everybody truly coming together. Now, I'm going to focus a little more specifically on the dialogue because there were really specific parts. And for me, I'm a father as well. I have 2 daughters. And also I have a brother who, unfortunately, we have a terrible relationship. Like, I'll be honest, last time we got together, we fought. I still got scars from it. Like, it's bad, man. So to see, like, Havoc and Cyclops, like, doing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, they haven't had those moments. They've only had those moments in spurts throughout the comics. You know what I mean? Like, that hit me right in the feels, as people say. But he was just talking about how, it is said that when you have children, you never get another good night's rest, but, hey, if our sacrifice is so they can have a good night's rest, then it's worth it. And just saying, like, and for us to be able to provide a home, something that was a dream and is now being turned into reality, and, for this to be, a home and a nation to them, and someday in the future, this would be their world, because that is the same thing. What's a funny thing that's fact, and Hickman set it up, that if it wasn't for the 16 million slaughter in Genosha, or Genosha, however you want to pronounce it, mutants would already outnumber humans, and that is just like the science of it, that natural selection, whatever you want to call it. Like, they would be inhabiting the earth, just like, so that those would just be the facts. So naturally they would take it over. They don't have to take it by force. They would just take it in time by numbers. That's just how it would be. So I just love that he's just like so hopeful. One other panel that we didn't talk about, and you tell me, Wes, if you want to take a look at it, was that not Wolverine going and handing a beer to Mariko?
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, it is, and I believe the next panel is them drinking it on the next page.
It's just, I don't know. Hey, I love the X-Men ever since I was a kid. Just seeing all this stuff is just like, it's just hit me, man. But to wrap it up, we're getting to the last page, the page that Wes is talking about. And he said, the reason that we can give them a future and everything alone is more than enough reason to carry this burden that we have. And in fact, it's more than that. It's a reason to celebrate. And that's what they're doing. They're celebrating. We see, now this is what was interesting, because it's Autumn that's Apocalypse, Charles, and Magneto, right? Mm-hmm. So we got the very first mutant in Sabanur, Apocalypse. And then we have the two people kind of bringing this whole mutant mission together. And we have Charles Xavier and we have Magneto. And Apocalypse is watching them off in the distance. So, Wes, this is one that I actually was waiting to tell you. What is the significance of Apocalypse watching them and not being there with them?
All right, so here's my thoughts on this.
Okay.
So everyone on Krakoa is celebrating. Mm-hmm. And basically they're celebrating what Apocalypse has been working towards his entire life. He has been working to this moment his entire life, but he's not celebrating because now is not the time, because he sees that there's a tough road ahead and the mission isn't done. So he's kind of walking away, reflecting on everything that's happened, while Charles and Magneto are overseeing everything that they built, because he knows it's not even close to done. That's the way I took it.
And dude, that is a fantastic take. Because as you're talking, it hits me. He was here way before them, and he'll be there way after them. This is old hat for Apocalypse. He's experienced, like Wes said. He knows that this is far from over. And I bet in his experience, he probably did this where he celebrated too early before the true victory. And he felt like a fool, and he learned from it. So he doesn't want to discourage them because he likes that they're seeing his vision now. Ooh, what if him and Namor team up? That's another conversation. He's seeing that that his vision now, but he's just like, let me not discourage them. I'll let them celebrate. Let them get all spunky and whatnot, and let them get all full of zeal and zealous. I'll need them like that for when the real battle begins.
It's kind of like when on the forest moon of Endor, when everyone's out there celebrating, or was he over there meditating?
Wow.
The battle's just begun, baby.
Oh, Wes, I gotta stop and say, dude, it's a joy and a pleasure to do this show with you.
I agree. This is definitely one of the highlights of my nerd week, is Wednesday or Thursday talking with you about House of X, Powers of 10. Next, in a couple weeks, it'll be X-Men, and hopefully, I'm thinking Marauders, X-Force. We're gonna see which ones pop the best.
Absolutely. We will see, and we will be giving our honest takes on those, because there's a high probability that some of them will suck because of some of who the people are, but we will give them a fair chance at the same time. We will put our bias aside, give them a fair shot, and hope that they come through. Talking about fair shots, here goes the last shot. Again, we're talking about Apocalypse looking on. We see, and I love just the placement. Again, Pepe Larraz, just his compositions of his frames. Magneto over here, Charles right next to him, their faces. And Magneto says, just look at what we have made. Now
admiring his work before it's complete.
Exactly. Again, like Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is looking at them in their foolishness, but he's marveling before the job is done. Lastly, what we have is another grid, another graphic. It's showing Krakoa once again. Now, this is a part, Wes, maybe you need to share your thoughts with me to give me better perspective on it. When we originally saw Krakoa, they did have, like the closer view of it and then the zoomed out view with the indicator, almost like the crosshairs, so to speak, of where it is placed in the Atlantic. But now we have two indicators. We've got one kind of in the Atlantic.
So initially it was in the Pacific. Initially it was in the Pacific. Now there's a Krakoa in the Atlantic, which I don't remember seeing. And then the designators, originally there were 12 that were identified. Now there's 21. Right. It's really interesting. Everyone's wondering, where's the danger room? There's a danger island. That's where they train now. No longer a danger room. We've also got Bar Sinister now been incorporated into Krakoa. The Red Keep, Hellfire Bay, White Palace, the White Palace. But number 18 is unidentified. Is that the no place? That would be too easy of an answer. I got to know what it is. Come on, Hickman. It's the last comic book in the story, and you're going to give a new mystery? What the hell, dude?
You know him, man. You know him. Before we jump into like our concluding thoughts, again, just like the last panel, it's the last quote. Just look at what we have made. Magneto. Now, what's funny about that is, again, because like Wes, I'm a natural skeptic. My mind state is rebel, revolt, and question. That's just how I'm wired. That's probably why I like Jonathan Hickman so much, because all he does is play in that box. But just look at what we have made. To me, I immediately took the other side of what have we done? What have we made?
You created something, but you've done nothing with it.
And we don't know what our creation is ultimately going to be with. So as we say, look at what we have made in a proud moment, that could be turned on its head, and it could be something to be disgusted and revolted.
Oh, yeah, it could be. I can't believe we made this. The agent of our own demise.
The agent of our own demise. That's what came to mind. That was my last thought on that particular part. Concluding thoughts, Wes, theories, predictions, anything, throw them at me.
No, I mean, this is an amazing series. Like I said, this is my least favorite of the House of X series, but the whole series has been amazing. So, this is still a 4.5-star book to read. And I still believe, this is better than a couple of the Powers of 10's books. But it's been a great story. If you just think about everything that's been revealed in this book, Moira X, the suicide mission to the Mother Mold, mutants can be reincarnated, the new powers of Cerebro, the invitation for all mutants, villainous otherwise, to Krakoa, the establishment of the new government. It's a lot of stuff happened in 11 very short weeks.
I agree. Tons of stuff happening, especially with a book coming out week after week after week. Tons of stuff being thrown at us. I would agree that from all of the Powers books that I remember, I would say I would rank this one likely the lowest on the totem pole for me. Even though I still did thoroughly enjoy it, and if we're just talking about like tier lists, I would say this is probably at the bottom of the tier. And then for predictions, like I said, I believe that Creed got dropped near no place. I believe he's close to Moira. I think we'll obviously find out more about that here soon. As it is known, if she makes it past the age of 13, then her mutant abilities kick in just like anybody at that age when you're going through puberty and whatnot, so she can continue a life. It was Destiny, right? The one that had the mask that said, "I don't see past a 10th life for you. If you continue down this path, I'll find you. I'll kill you while you're young, whatnot." So, but Destiny just said that she can see past. It wasn't like carved in stone. So Moira could have more lives past that. So we have the whole thing, as Wes says, give credit to Wes, that she could cure herself. And then after that, she just wouldn't be in play anymore. So that stops the loop. I'm one who really contends that not only will she be cured, but then she'll die after that. And I believe Creed is going to be the one to kill her. To me, it's a poetic parallel to someone who's very close with Wolverine, being the one that had to kill her once she got the crystal and the powers of 10 book. And then that's the Moira that got sent back to basically restart the Moira that gave this Charles this vision. But still we don't know what happened to her 6th lifeline. So as Wes said, we're jumping back and forth between 2 different ones. I am a firm believer of that. So that's as far as my prediction goes for the last of it and the end of the book. And I believe that her dying in a way that she can't come back, and I think this does parallel against like, hey, we didn't kill Creed. We dropped him in stasis, or so we thought. He kills Moira. Now, Moira was cured when he killed her, so Moira is a human again, not a mutant. And that is against our laws, and I feel like they will kill him after that. And I just think it's such a parallel since Wolverine had to take her out. Now he takes her out. They're brothers or close or whatever continuity you want to follow. So to me, in my mind, all of that stuff ties in that way. And that's probably my last prediction that I'll truly have before we conclude the Powers of 10 book next week.
Yeah, my only real prediction off of this, coming off of this one, I do think Namor is going to be one of their bad guys to begin with before he's convinced to join their side. I think that is going to happen.
I'm just overall down for more Namor to be in there because he came in with a boom, like he kind of always does. So I'm all about it. But in order to find out what else happens and our thoughts about it, you guys continue to tune in to Outside the Bleed. Hopefully you're already subscribed to Thinking Critical. If you're not, please consider subscribing now, as well as turning on your notifications. Please. We've got so much content pumping through this channel. We love you guys. This says it right here. So please subscribe. You guys have already been doing incredible with commenting. Like Wes and I love to pour through the comments and respond to people, like comments, get ideas. And like I said, if you guys do that, if you screenshot it and then go ahead and post it and then add us and use the Outside the Bleed and the Thinking Critical hashtags, when we do our conclusion show, we'll be able to gather some of our favorite ones and kind of give some credit to some people that gave us interesting ways to view this historical and monumental book that Jonathan Hickman is doing. And I really, really hope at the end of it, we get a satisfying conclusion that spins us off into the other books, because really this is all just to get the other books going. So everything's not hinging upon this to me, but it would be nice to get a satisfying conclusion that we're all happy with. And if you're not happy with it, you can voice your concerns here. Keep it clean, keep it respectful, and keep it about the story, because at the end of the day, we all have different political views, we have different ideological views, but the one thing that brings us all here together is comics. So let's keep it about the comics, y'all, and let's have fun with that. Thank you so much for Wes for providing us this place where we can come together and do this. That's Wes for _from_TC on Twitter. I am at Skipntosh, only one I, and that I loves you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace.